these sea slugs here are part of a very major group of snails, also includes the vast majority of land snails and slugs, which are hermaphroditic. And in this case, these are simultaneous hermaphrodites. They're functioning as male and female at the same time, but each one is both supplying sperm to the other and receiving sperm. So they're functioning as male and female at the same time, but not self-fertilizing, instead able to both give and receive sperm in these. Things like the protandrous or protogynous hermaphrodites are serial hermaphrodites. They're one at a time. You also have instances where any one individual could function as male or female, but in any one encounter they only function as one. For example, some of the freshwater snails, also in this same group of hermaphroditic snails, will, if they meet up with somebody else, well, that's better than self-fertilizing and not having any genetic diversity. But the smaller one will function as a male, and the larger as a female. Again, larger, able to invest more in the eggs. One or the other? Well, sexual reproduction, it's somewhat less efficient, requires more energy. You have to get two individuals together. Both of them have to produce the gametes. They have to identify that this is a suitable partner, all that sort of stuff. But you've got the advantage of the genetic diversity. In meiosis, you've got the crossing over, the independent assortment, where out of your matching chromosomes for chromosome 1, maybe the father's plus whatever mix it got from crossing over goes to this cell, and the mother to that one. For chromosome 2, maybe it's the primarily mother's copy that goes this way, and father's that way. And so then after meiosis, you also have the fertilization. So you're mixing new combination from the two parents, which is a new mix from all the grandparents. New mix, maybe that new mix is going to be a little better than what any of the parents had, especially if there's any variation in the environment. Asexual reproduction, well, you get to skip the whole trouble of the dating scene. One individual can produce the offspring, so that's more energy efficient. But there's no genetic variation coming in there. So this will work well if environment's not changing, and well, hey, I survived this point. Copies of me should work. Okay, lots of clones. But as Star Wars demonstrated, clones can run into problems. So it's not good if something changes and all of a sudden that particular clone, all of them have a problem. This affects us in the real world as well. A lot of popular crop plants are clones. And if a disease comes along that can hit it, then huge amounts of things where all the farmers have all planted the popular seed are all hit. More variety, there's likely to be more resistance. Now, one complication, if you've got more than 2 copies of each chromosome, you're polyploid, sorting those out in meiosis tends to not work very easily, especially if you've got an odd number. And then there's no way you can pair things up when you got 3 or 5 or 127 or whatever. Yes, there are some things that are ridiculously polyploid. So they tend to be reproducing asexually, maybe parthenogenetic, whatever happens to work in the particular group. However, polyploid, lots of copies of genes, In particular, that includes lots of copies of immune system genes. The more variety in your immune system, the more chance that you're going to have some of those immune cells that are producing the right thing to recognize, hey, you're a pathogen, you don't belong here, attack. So even though they're reproducing asexually, they're clones of each other, but they've got enough genetic variety to sometimes do relatively well. This has been seen, for example, in certain types of lizards, where you have polyploid clones that are doing quite well, apparently because of the more varied immune resistance that you have than your standard diploid individual. Reproductive systems, assuming that you have some general acquaintance with the human system, focus a bit more on how different animals are different. Key thing here, each species needs to recognize its own species, pairing up with it. Pairing up with an individual of another species is generally a waste of effort. Reproduction is likely to be unsuccessful if hybrid individuals are produced as young and develop, and they tend to not do so well. So identifying the right species is an important factor, and there are lots of things there. So it's structural. If you can't mate at all, well then obviously that's not the right individual. Distinctive behaviors. Many animals, obviously it requires some degree of brain to process the signals, but quite a lot of types of animals have some degree of courtship behavior. And so an individual that's doing the right types of moves, okay, that seems to be an individual of the right species. Maybe this can go somewhere. Chemicals. These are used across animals in general. Of course, that's basically the only thing available to things with external fertilization. If it's a matter of just releasing gametes in the water, not like the frogs where they at least are next to each other, but something like a coral, it can't go over and visit somebody. It's just releasing them out into the water. And so the right egg and sperm have to recognize each other chemically in order to pair up. But you have a number of chemicals that are clues to many other types of organisms identifying, yes, this is the right type of individual to match up with. Male system will be specialized to effectively transmit the sperm. This may be forming specialized packets to transport the sperm in, especially things that may release this into the water. But some species, for example, many types of cephalopods, the male basically hands off a packet of sperm to the female, things like that. Also, any sort of insertion of a structure to transmit the sperm. Now, not all have it. You have a major group of snails, including some of the freshwater ones you can find down in the Broad River at the Greenway, that do not have special structures for the male. A number of birds do not have much of a distinctive structure there that, well, it's weight. If you're flying around, you're trying to eliminate weight that you can manage without. Not all birds. Male ducks do have more developed structures there, for example. If you have internal fertilization, then the female system will have additional specializations for care and protection of the young. For example, these are reproductive structures from a couple of different types of snails in hermaphrodites, so they have both male and female structures there. So these can include structures, say, for storing sperm, and while it's stored, the female can actually do a degree in many species of this sperm's better, I'll keep that and get rid of that. So you have things like that there. Making eggshells, that's another one protection. Some types of animals, of course familiar being in mammals, but here and there in various others, say some sharks, some reptiles, some snails, various random other things. A number of clams have specialized ways of protecting the young inside the female for a while before they are born out on their own.